Thank you, entire team, for introducing me to the galaxy of intellectuals. 3-day International Virtual Conference on Indigenous Studies. Before we go ahead with the session, I would like to inform you that the time allotted for each presentation is 10 minutes. Question and answer session will be at the end of all the presentations. And audience will also put the questions in the chat box. We'll address these questions once the presentations get over. And it's my pleasure to introduce our first presenter, Mr. Amar Andiani, English Department, Faculty of Cultural Science, University of 17 August 1945, Surabaya. Over to you, sir.
Yes, I am.
Oh,
Yes, I am. Sorry, that's still.
hello.
Yes, sorry, because I still make it to adapt it. That's already visible about my PPT. Yes.
Yes, yes, we can see it.
Oh, I am. Yes. Thank you very much. Okay. Thanks for the chance given to me. That's and also thanks to the organizers. That's my my thesis is about this is about a comparative study on Indian Panchatantra and all Javanese Tantrika Mandaka. That's in this case this is ancient text because Indian Panchatantra is written on in 200 BC and all Javanese Tantrika Mandaka is written in 1500. That's about 1500. That's I use the Rifatar semiotic and Steve Thompson motif. In this case, according to Rifatar semiotic, that's there is a hypergram before the text itself. That's in this case, the hypergram itself is Panchatantra, and the variant is Tantrika Mandaka. That's in the according to Rifata, that's also there is a modification in the variant itself to have a conversion or expansion. And for the theory of motifs, I used the concept of the classification from Steve Thompson that the motif is the unit of folk narrative. That's like myth, the story of animal, taboo, and humor. In this case, after for the if we talk about the Panchatantra itself, Indian Panchatantra has 22 animal stories, and then in this case, according to Chandiramani, that's it is translated in it is popular noun with the name Hitopadesa or useful advice, and this is translated in Sanskrit language by Sri Narayana Pandit in 1657, and that's translated in Indonesian language by Dharmayasa in 1998. And for the text of Tantri itself, actually there are many texts in the become the prior of Tantri itself, because it is also concerned with the reign of kingdom in Java. That's before Islam coming to Java. That's before Majapahit kingdom. That's there are Ramayana, Mahabharata, Arjuna Vivaha, Arjuna Wijaya, and Lukdaka, Uttarakanda, Kunjarakarna, and so on, and also Calon Arang, Tantu Panggelaran, talking about mythology in Java and habits in Java. And the N is Tantrika Mandaka. Tantrika Mandaka was found by Hoykas in 1923. That's actually there are 12 variants of Tantrika Mandaka. There's Tantrika Mandaka in Tantri Bali, in Balinese language, 6 variants, and in Maduranese language, and in Kadiri also. That's Middle Japanese language and Old Japanese language. And the result of the finding of my thesis is my research is there are conversion. Conversion happened to the motive that the role. There is a motive in Panchatantra. There is a motive. A priest teaches wisdom. And in Tantrika Mandaka, there is the transformation of the role of the person become the advisor, not from the priest, but in Tantrika Mandaka, a woman becomes the advisor. So in this case, there is a conversion of the function of a teacher of wisdom from priest becoming a woman, and then that's the conversion. For the expansion, there is from mostly in Panchatantra, there is a teaching of Niti Sastra. That's the teaching of Niti Sastra here is emphasizing of human being must always do dharma, yoga, that's to control mind and passion, and there is also a karma and jnana. Jnana is actually this distinctive in just found in Panchatantra, because it is not found in Tantrika Mandaka. According to me, that's there is a motive in Steve Thompson that jnana here means debating with logical thinking. And for the expansion in Tantrika Mandaka, there are some of them, that's Tantrism, Rajadewa, Sati, and Kaladesa. Like Tantrism, that's not just about this is I get a motive that wife insists upon knowing husband's secret. So that's there is a concept of disobedience of a woman. That's the similar with the concept of Tantrism. And then there is Rajadewa. Rajadewa means here the king has a supernatural power. There is a story of King Aridharma that has Ajiginam. It means mastering animal language. That's this is in Java. Still, there is a belief that king has supernatural power, and that's Sati is also there is also similar with Ramayana. There is a wife of a king that jumped to fire because that's because of she cannot know the husband's secret of Ajiginang itself. That's and Kala Desa. Kala means time, and Desa means village. It means time and place. So in doing act, humans should always adapt with time and place. That nowadays in Java, some of people in Java still know about Empan Papan, but it's also becoming not anymore popular again. So that is the conclusion is there is local color that Panchatantra has Niti Sastra, and the Tantrika Mandaka has local color of Tantrism, Rajadewa, and Sati, and Kaladesa. Okay, thank you very much for listening for my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Adhyani, for a nice presentation. Our next presenter is Ritika Gorai, Assistant Professor, Indraprasth College for Women, University of Delhi. The title of paper is Ecological Concerns in Mahabharata. Over to you, Ritika
Hello.
Gorai.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hello. Hi. So, good evening, Honorable Chair, my fellow participants, and all the participants who are present here. The title of my paper is Ecological Concerns in Mahabharata. Uh, so, let's start it. Mankind is going through a phase of unprecedented crisis due to certain outbreak of COVID-19 and the kind of catastrophic impact it has caused worldwide, killing millions of people and rendering human activities at standstill across the country. This COVID situation has once again brought the importance of ecological discourse at the forefront, questioning the ruthless aggression of human beings and the encroachment of the space designated for non-human entities or the other organisms in the nature. The organisms and the environment, the two components of nature, have a dynamic and complex relationship. The depletion of one causes risks to the existence of the other. They are indeed mutually interrelated, interdependent, which have been proved time and again in the form of mass extinction of different species. Ecology, which is comparatively a new science, deals with the relationship between man and nature, and it is based on the historical precedent that human avarice, ignorance, inertia in maintaining a harmonious relationship with nature has caused total wiping out of great civilizations from the face of the earth. So I have divided my paper into two sections. The first part is a study of the historical understanding of nature and its relation to man as per the understanding of Western theology, which centers around an anthropocentric worldview where nature is to serve man as resources, and how theology of modernity in the form of progress and development has harmed nature, considering nature as ancient and therefore opposite of modernity. The second section of my paper will do an eco-critical reading of the ancient Indian text Mahabharata and explores the ecological concerns and messages contained in the text. My purpose is to explore the idea of reality as expressed to the concept of Mahapurusha, Ekam, the symbiotic relationship between man and nature with reference to concepts like dharma, avatara, demonic, divinity, etc. I would conclude my paper not with much answers, rather with questions like is modernity taking us towards apocalypse? If harmony between nature and man falls out, will it be inevitable for mankind to face disaster? And last but not the least, is it time that we should proceed towards the ancient from modernity, from anthropocentricity to cosmology, from the will to dominate others to mastery over our own greed, ego, self? Now, I begin I would like to quote a section from the Genesis in order to give an example of how Western theology, Judeo-Christian theology, has looked at nature. I quote here, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth, tree yielding seed to you, it shall be for meat. It's a quotation from Genesis. In this context, Lynn White's article on the historical roots of our ecological crisis has charged Christianity for being human-centered. The article argues that anthropocentric interest has been the major hurdle in making the planet a common home purpose for all the varieties of innumerable species that inhabit the earth and survive through interdependence. White thinks that man has interpreted the lines from the Genesis, I quote, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth in an extremely ruthless manner to a point that human interest has been believed to be the sole concern of the planet, resulting ruthless exploitation to other species. Mankind, the only worthwhile inhabitant, has got all the right to push back all other varieties as unworthy. Now, the conflict between ecological thought and Judeo-Christian theology started on the ground that man is created in the image of God, and therefore it is superior and has spatial dominion over the earth. Gradually, the main focus was initially for personal salvation. Gradually, the focus shifted from life to from there to human intellect, to human mind. It is claimed that human life cannot be controlled by natural wisdom of the organism, but it should strictly stand upon its conscious intelligence and its own resources. The conflict between man and nature aggravated with the introduction or with the arrival of modern philosophy, science, and technology. The dualistic approach between body and mind, and human beings having mind and intelligence cannot have a relationship with the greater world, with the planet, with other organisms on the planet. There are a number of philosophers which I'm not mentioning. Some of them are like Descartes has spoken about it, Kant has spoken about it. There are a number of German theologians who have spoken about it. Kant has also said that every other thing lacks specificity and character, and nature is dependent on human creativity. Non-human species are denied integrity, relegated to be the service provider and resources of human beings. Thus, we see that modern theology also directed its attention from biosphere to human sphere. Now, modernity, along with its emphasis on anthropocentrism, has conceptualized nature as an obstacle to be overcome or a resource to be utilized by human intellect and capabilities. The more we become technologically advanced, the more nature becomes a resource to be utilized for the benefit of man at the cost of destroying several other organisms associated with nature. So while old theology emphasizes that destiny is in the hands of man, in the modern theology we find that the importance of technology and the destiny rests upon the technology and science upon which man's future depends. And also there's an idea about the natural catastrophe also. When the Western theology, the old Judeo-Christian theology, believes that natural catastrophe is inevitable, with the modern theology says that human beings can study nature in order to try and postpone some of these catastrophic effects. So in the modern context, what we see that if nature causes problem to human existence, science and technology can bring solutions. Every other thing becomes a kind of resources to be exploited, including technology. I mean, there is a kind of uncanny similarity between nature and technology, both of which are to be exploited to the least at the to achieve the means or to achieve certain kind of an end.
I'm sorry to interrupt. You are left with only 2 minutes in your hand, Deepika.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry. So now let's come to the second part of the paper. Sorry, I have only 10 minutes. I forgot actually. So the second part of the paper is about the Mahabharata. In Mahabharata, obviously, Mahabharata doesn't deal explicitly with ecological concern, but eco-critical reading of the Mahabharata can be seen when it focuses on the perception between giving the perception between human and nature, elucidating an environmental awareness at the moral and spiritual level. I mean, there are a number of examples, like in the Archana, there is the importance of maintaining unpolluted water level, the importance of planting trees, and how it helps the ecosystem. Here, in order to elucidate the argument, I also talk about the dharma, because dharma is to live in tune with nature, and is a collective of all such activities which help to sustain and strengthen the cosmic order. We are very natural universe to do our job in a society to continue to maintain the welfare of the universe, and the opposite of dharma is dharma, which is destructive to the universe. Man's egotistic living and selfish behavior without considering the damage to the world is adharma. I as the center and the world as the thing is an autocratic way of living in the universe. Such egotism is demonic, and living harmfully, maintaining a balance in the universe is divine. It is the responsibility and obligation of human beings to restrain the demonic aspect in us in order to be divine. Now, Vyasa has also spoke about a lot of things and how this excessive exploitation causes burden to the earth, and in order to unburden the earth, Vishnu comes on the earth as avatars to release the earth from the burden of destruction, atrocities, and suffering. For example, the Krishna avatar, for example, the avatar of the boar which saves the mother, which saves the mother earth from the flood. The number of other examples also are there, Vyasa recommending Duryodhana for excessive exploitation of the earth, which makes the soil barren and unfertile, which will affect the treasury of the state and the welfare of the people. Therefore, here again we see there is an indirect way of referring the importance of coexistence between nature and mankind. It is nature which nurtures sustenance. Therefore, in conclusion, I would like to emphasize that anthropocentric universe has already caused damage to the planet, but it is not even possible to go back to nature, living life in terms of nature, but a coexistence and harmonious relationship with the for coexistence for our sustenance. Thank you.
Thank you, Vitika. It's really a very enlightening presentation. Our third presentation of this session is Mr. Basu Etre, research scholar, Department of Folklore Research, Guwahati University of Assam. The title of the paper is Life Cycle Folk Beliefs of the Bodos, a study with special reference to Chirang district of Assam. Over to you. You are not audible. You are not audible.
Okay.
Yeah,
The topic
yeah.
is life cycle and folk beliefs of the Bodos, a study with special reference to Chirang district of Assam. First of all, I will come to the introduction first. Assam is a state of India located in the northern part of the country. The Bodos are one of the indigenous ethnic group and early settlers of Assam. The word Bodo or Bodo denotes both the language and the community. It is a co-official language of Assam. Racially, the Bodos belong to the Indo-Mongoloid and linguistically to the Tibeto-Burman branch of Sino-Tibetan language family. The Bodos are called in different names in different places by neighboring non-Bodo people like Kasari or Bodo Kasari or Bodo in Assam, Mech or Meche in West Bengal, and Meche in Nepal. But it is certain that whatever name they may call by their neighbors and wherever they may live, they are the same people, and everywhere they speak their Bodo language with few local variation. The Bodo speech community is now spread all over the Assam, North Bengal, and in some parts of Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Nagaland, Mizoram, Manipur, Tripura, West Bengal, Bihar, and some adjacent areas of Bangladesh, Nepal, and Bhutan. Like many other tribal communities of Assam, the Bodos also have their own distinct language, literature, culture, heritage, traditions, custom, rituals, and other social religious practices by which they represent their own worldview. According to the census of India 2001, the number of Bodo speakers in Assam is 12,96,162 against a total number of 13,50,478 Bodo speakers in the entire country. Life is full of transitions in cyclic order. The life cycle is complex process consisting of critical moment of human life from joys of childbirth to the sorrows of death. The practices of life cycle rituals are found in many societies and are often based on traditions and community. The life cycle consists of a series of which includes birth, marriage, and death. Among the Bodos, some customs and traditions are observed relating to the life cycle, which constitute their traditions, identity, and culture. For beliefs is the main characteristics of tribal society. The Bodos are also not exemption from certain folk beliefs. Various folk beliefs are practiced. Various folk beliefs are practiced by the Bodos in relation to birth, death, and marriage. The objectives of the present paper is to identify and highlight the rituals celebrated by the Bodos concerning the life cycle, to explore the folk beliefs related to life cycle and its significance in the present Bodo society. Now let's come to the discussion. Every society and community has its own distinctive traditions and customs in relation to the life cycle rituals. The Bodo life cycle more or less centers around the three important rites of phases, namely birth, marriage, and death. Death ritual, birth, birth ritual. Birth is considered as first cycle of life. Folk practices at birth generally aim at safeguarding the life and health of the newborn baby. The Bodos observe certain traditional customs relating to childbirth. In the Bodo society, the pregnancy is generally detected when menstruation discontinues. After pregnant, a woman has to remain very careful till the time of childbirth. During this period, she is not allowed to do any hard work by her mother-in-law or other family members. She is not allowed to plant paddy, planting rice, domestic work, as well as other field work as usual women. She is also not allowed to go to the forest, rivers, and cremation grounds. There are some folk beliefs among the Bodos associated with birth ritual. The first one is, there is a folk beliefs among the Bodo people that during the pregnancy, if the mother is deprived of eating something that she desires, then it is believed that her child will constantly salivate from his mouth. Therefore, whatever she wants to eat is given during her pregnancy. The another one is, the mothers of newborn baby always carry a knife when with her, because it is believed that the knife is intended to keep off the evil spirits. The third one is, it is also believed that the umbilical cord, which is cut by a woman whose hand is considered to be bitter one, will dry soon, whereas it is said to take time if cord is cut by a woman whose hand is considered to be sweet one. Therefore, the umbilical cord is cut by a woman whose hand is believed to be bitter, so that would be dry soon. The four Bodos believe that if the umbilical cord is cut by a widow or a widower, then the child may not have a long life. So no widow or widower is allowed to cut the umbilical cord in their society. A pregnant woman is not allowed to look at the sun during the solar eclipse, because it is believed that the baby will be born abnormally if the mother looks at the sun during solar eclipse. The marriage ceremony. Marriage is the second life cycle ceremony among the human beings. Marriage is an important socially recognized institution in human society which admits men and women to family life. It is a union of two individuals belonging to different sex with the approval of the society. In Bodo language, marriage is called haba. Haba is combination of two words, ha, which means soil, and ba, which means to bear something on the back. Hence, haba means to bear the responsibility of the earth. There are several folk beliefs among the Bodos associated with marriage ceremony. The first one is, while going to ask the hand of a bride for marriage, if a mongoose or a black cat is seen crossing the road from the right side to the left, then it is believed that there may be separation or divorce between husband and wife after the wedding. It is also believed that either the husband or the wife may die after the wedding if the selection party come across a dead body on the way. The second one is, among the Bodo society, no widow or widower is allowed to take a leading part in all the activities relating to a marriage, starting from birth selection to the end of marriage ceremony, because it is believed that either the husband or wife may die untimely if widow or widower takes part. There is a custom among the Bodos that while bringing the bride to the bridegroom's house, the bridegroom's mother encircles the egg over the bride's head and throw it out. It is believed that by doing this, the evil spirits are cast out. Such belief and practice are still very prevalent in the Bodo society. The next one is death ritual. That is considered as last cycle of human life. A person once born has to meet his her death. Nobody can escape from it. Among some traditional rites are performed relating to death. The Bodo people believe that the soul of a dead person does not rest peace in the heaven if those rites are not performed during that ritual. If someone dies in the village members and the relatives are called and informed by the family of the dead. Among the Bodos, both the burial and the cremation system of
I'm
disposal
sorry to interrupt.
of
Your
dead
time is
body.
almost over. Please try to wind up your presentation.
Okay. There are various folk beliefs associated with dead rituals among the Bodos. The first one is uh, among the Bodos, it is believed that the soul of the dead person who meets death by hanging and poisoning or any type of suicide cannot go heaven. Among the Bodos, it is also believed that after the cremation is over, uh, every member of the funeral party chews a little quantity of dry wood leaves before returning to their respective houses. By doing this, they believe that the relation between the dead person and the members of funeral party is over from that moment. The third one is the Bodo people believe that if the funeral ceremony is not observed by the family, then the soul of the dead person does not leave its body and the home. Now let's come to the conclusion. Every society and community has its own distinctive tradition, customs, and beliefs in relation to the life cycle rituals. The Bodos are not different, and they observe some unique customs and traditions relating to birth, marriage, and death rituals, which constitute their identity and rich culture. They have so many rites and folk beliefs in relating to birth, marriage, and death ritual, which are still practiced in their society. The folk beliefs of the Bodos is a way to understand their traditions, customs, rituals, and their way of living in the past as well as present society. After the society has been touched by the light of education and gradual development, the significance of certain folk belief is gradually declining with time in the present Bodo society. It is worth mentioning that nowadays the observing of name giving ceremony, uh, first rice feeding ceremony, hair cutting ceremony are also seen in their society, but those are clearly of lesser importance in comparison to birth, marriage, and death ritual. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you,
you
ma'am.
so much for this stimulating presentation. Our next presenter is Ashwarya, PhD research scholar, VSSUT, Burla, Odisha, and Dr. Prashant Kumar Padi, Assistant Professor of English, Department of Humanities, VSSUT, Burla, Odisha. The title of the presentation is New Pagan and Reconstructionist Spirituality and Religion in Australia. Over to you, Ashwarya. Hello, am I audible? Hello.
Yes, yes, you are very much audible, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Shubhra ma'am. Over to you, Amashwarya.
Aishwarya, I think you need to unmute yourself.
Hello,
Yes, yes.
is my voice?
It's not yet
Hello,
audible.
okay. This is again a deconstructionist spirituality. Anything that non-Abrahamic way of life, pagan or heathen, living the life in a non-Abrahamic monotheistic way in the modern times is called contemporary paganism or modern paganism. Neo-paganism exists in Australia among a minority community that is gradually growing. They are present in the form of solitary practitioners or covens, and some are hierarchical. Gardnerian and Alexandrian covens exist where hierarchy plays a role. The other covens have the concept of high priest and priestesses. The arrival of the Gardnerian Wiccans and Alexandrian Wiccans dates back to the 1960s. They came from Europe and the US. The existing size of the neo-pagans, which is about 20,000, is expected to grow gradually as man begins to love nature and care for animals. Let us try to know about the Australian neo-pagan movement from the book Handbook of Contemporary Paganism by James R. Lewis and Murphy Pizza, published in the year 2009. There we find the article Australian Paganism by Douglas Easy. Here he tries to tell about the early stages of the pagan movement, its popularization and its consolidation. The early stages. Australian paganism has its early history with the arrival of the theosophists and spiritualists in the late 1800s and 1900s. Occult orders having Western influences like Western magical traditions and British occultism, Hermetism, Kabbalah, the Golden Dawn, Aleister Crowley were found in Melbourne and Sydney during the 1960s and 1970s. The popularization. In 2001 census, 24,157 people described themselves as pagans. Out of them, 63% were female and 37% were male. In other words, pagans have established themselves as a significant part of the landscape of minority religions in Australia. The number of teenagers who identify as pagans or witches has grown substantially in recent years. Pagan festivals form the core of national face-to-face community events in Australia. The consolidation around Australia, there are numerous working covens, several druid groups, and heathen herds. Many Australian pagans have been part of and worked with such groups at some stage in their past. There are two main umbrella or networking associations in Australia that perform similar functions in the Pagan Federation, like the Pagan Federation in England. They are the Pagan Alliance and the Pagan Awareness Network. The next source for my data is the book Witchcraft and Paganism in Australia by Lina Hume. Here the author writes about how she came across the pagans for the first time in Canada, investigate about the pagan movement in Australia. So she came across them in Canada, then she investigated them in Australia. How she tried to understand their cosmology and their rituals. She ends by saying feminists and environmentalists are mostly attracted towards the pagan movement in Australia. The next is the article Creation and Innovation in Australian Paganism by the same author Lina Hume, where she writes about the background to the contemporary pagan movement. The British colonizers brought Christianity, which later became the religion of the majority in Australia. But everybody was not involved in the mainstream faith. There was the Theosophy, the Order of the Golden Dawn, the Freemason, and the Druids. These groups decided to influence the later generations. The early 20th century books related to occultism were not found in the mainstream bookshops. The ADR bookshelf of Theosophical Society were the only exception where non-Christian books were found. But with the advent of the New Age movement, any kind of book is available in mainstream bookshops. The Theosophical Society is one of the major early influences in contemporary paganism. Madame Blavatsky's own interest in Hinduism and Eastern mysticism led to her synthesis of both Western and Eastern ideas, adopting the notions of reincarnation, karma, and combining them with the aspects of Western mysticism. The ecological movement and the feminist movement have also put their influence in the pagan movement. As there is goddess worship in the neo-pagan movement, it attracts females, and the ecological crisis and the diminishing water resources in Australia, where much of the continent is desert and scrub, has gained focus of eco-paganism. The Australian pagans are compelled to address the land, and this invariably leads to the discussion on how Indigenous Australians relate to the place. Aboriginal Australians have been living in the continent for thousands of years, and they have very strong connections with the place. The sacredness of the land is at the heart of the Aboriginal spirituality, and pagans acknowledge that connection. And they are aware of the triad, land, human, spirit, an inextricable link that places Aboriginal Australians in a unique position. The next source is Consumption and the Authentic Pagan, written by Angela Coco and Ian Woodward. There, the writers have done a research on a Brisbane pagan group, where they came to the conclusion that these movements use images, symbols, and artifacts to shape their spiritual sensibility. The new pagan approach towards consumerism is ambivalent, and they generate or consume things that are capitalist or of media interest. The next source is the book Pagan Portals, Australian Druidry by Julie Brett, published by Moon Books in the year 2017. Here the author writes about Australian Druidry, which can be defined as the practice of Druidry or modern Druidry among the Australians. The groundwork was already there, only the Australian context was yet to come. The writer describes about certain rituals, which are: number one, connection with the spirits. Here the pagans form a circle and invoke the spirits of the land. The second ritual is the round of Amergin. Here the pagans sing the song of Amergin, who was a Milesian who had come to Ireland. The next is the call of peace. Here the pagans, the ringleader of the pagan ritual, moves to various in various directions, saying, "May there be peace in the east, may there be peace in the west, may there be peace in the north," and the others repeat. Then welcoming the three ancestors. This is a part where they involve family lineage with the belief of reincarnation. Then the ritual of land, sea, and sky, where the spirits of the three realms are invoked. Then the seasonal celebration. Here the pagans celebrate the wheel of the year, and they celebrate festivals like the flower festival and the wind change festival. The next is Awen. Awen is a chant which they use to get creative energy. Then the ritual of East food, where people share stories and songs and poetry which are inspired by the season. The feast. After every ritual, some food is used to bring the performance back to normal. The closing of the ceremony. In the closing of the ceremony, people form a circle and hold hands and say something like thanking the spirit and the ancestors and bid them farewell. However, the book tells about the way of life of the Australian Druid community, which is a neo-pagan community in Australia. After collecting the data regarding neo-paganism from various authors, we come to realize that
sorry to interrupt. Your time is you are left with only 2 minutes. Please wind up part.
Okay. Now, from various authors, we come to realize that neo-paganism and other non-Abrahamic forms of worship had entered Australia during the time of colonization itself. It is just that they remained hidden all the time and are getting noticed now. Natives of Australia, non-Abrahamic, hence their faith can be called pagan, and as they are visible in the current, they can come under the term neo-pagan. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was really a wonderful presentation. The last presentation of this session is on ethical values of Ramayana. the epicenter of universal religion. The presenters are Dr. Parth Jasper, Additional Pay and Accounts, Office 2, Finance Department, Government of West Bengal, and Mr. Arajit Kumar Das, Principal, Institute of Advanced Management, Kolkata. Over to you, sir.
Very good evening, ma'am, and very good evening to all of you, my fellow academicians and presenters. Okay, my your permission, I would like to share a screen, please. Okay, all of you, are you able to see the screen, ma'am?
Uh, yes, we can see. Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Okay, so myself, Arijit Kumar Das, I'm presenting a paper on ethical values of Ramana, the epicenter of universal religion. So this is our paper for presentation today. And in the paper, I have tried to present or design it in the following manner. First, I have made an epicenter of the Indian epic, that is the Ramayana, the foundations of Ramayana, how is it founded, the blend of civilization of Ramayana, lifeline, which is the lifeline of human development. Then we have the Ramayana root of philosophy and ethics. Next, I have designed it in the timeless values of dharma, morality, selfless sacrifices of Ramayana. Then the most important thing, managing family crisis in life and its solutions in Ramayana. And last, the implications of the study. So in this way, I will be presenting in brief about my paper. And the first topic or the first thing is the epicenter of Indian ethics. Now, Ramayana, we know, is one of the greatest Indian epic, and it glorifies the panorama of Indian philosophical concept. Now, this Ramayana, which was primarily known as a Valmiki Ramayana, has been divided into 7 descendants or khandas, which we are known as. These 7 descents or khandas are for 645 slokas, and around 23,690 slokas are also there in this Ramayana. Now, this Ramayana also portrays, or the Ramayana also portrays, the vivid content of the socio-political religious life of the human personalities, which was reflected during that situation or during that societies. Next, we have the foundations of Ramayana and portraying the goal of human life. So the ultimate goal of human life has been embedded in the form of 4 purusharthas. So we all know that the dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So all these things 4 constitutes the ultimate goal of humanity: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So Ramayana also mentions all these 4 things, and through these all items, it tries to maintain that human life also. Then it has been described, or it has been mentioned, as a lifeblood of Indian soul, influencing thoughts, beliefs, religious culture, and the values of every Indian. The greatest epic has molded the life of the people of India through ages. And the greatness of Ramayana is based on the divine quality of Rama and the ideal womanhood of Sita. Now we come to the next point, the blend of civilization and culture. Okay, so blend of civilization and culture in Ramayana, lifeline of human development. The Ramayana gives a dimension of a multifaceted depiction of a perfect life. So through the, though this is an epic, but it also gives us a multifaceted culture, multifaceted picture of how a human life can be. So from this also we get an inside picture of the human life, which was reflected at that point of time. Now it also depicts a picture of a rich culture, kingdom, family, which has been illustrated in the Varnas of Ramayana. The enlightenment of education blossomed with faith and knowledge glorifies Ramayana. The path of high moral code, dedicated disciplines, ceaseless endeavor, and ethical values elevate Indian culture. Happy, peaceful contentment life, culminated with Satya and Dharma, are the basic principles of Ramayana. So in each and every epic, we find these 2 terms, Satya and Dharma. So whether it is Ramayana, whether it is Mahabharata, or any other epic or any other religion or books which we find out, the Satya and Dharma are the main principles on which these epics or these books are being based on. And there are 4 Varnas and 4 ashrams which contribute rich philosophy of Ramayana, igniting the message of flourishing civilization with prosperity. next point, the Ramayana root of philosophy and ethics, the core of human values. Now, the moral principles and philosophy signifies the doctrines of supreme soul and intellectual ability. Philosophy enlightens the mystery of life and universe. Morality leads to path of progress and dictates the code of duties. The four pillars of the highest thought, that is the reality of the universe, reality of the self, law of dharma, and liberation, is the essence of Ramayana. Perfection can be achieved on following the path of tapasya, which is the real core of the epic. There are two categories of life. One is called private and that is called social life, which culminated in the epic as one is complementary to another. Truthfulness is the form of ahimsa, which is of the highest value or highest virtue. Sufferings, maya, are illusion and are regarded as transcendental consciousness. Karma yoga, the performance of duty. Bhakti yoga, the performance of devotion. Gyan yoga, karma, the performance of knowledge. All these three paths leads one to final emancipation. So through all these type of things, the epic or the Ramayana or any of the things tries to maintain or tries to discipline a humanity in the long run. The timeless treasure of dharma, morality, and selfless sacrifice in Ramayana, the perennial source of eternal humanity. Now, what supports life is called dharma. So we have various types of things, and what are the lives which support? What are the things which support life? That will be called, or based on it will be called as a dharma. Dharma alone is eternal, but happiness and sorrow are transitory. Duty or karma purifies one's soul. Dharma implies three things: control of sensual desire, performance of duty, and devotion. And the true exemplar of dharma is depicted in Rama of Ramayana. Rama's courage, patience, truthfulness were the very ingredients of Sama, that is a vital nature, or Samay. The epic illustrates the spirit of sacrifice as the highest form of performance in life. Ramayana depicts the true picture of society as a whole for attainment of wealthier and better life. Now we come to the last point or last things, how managing family crisis in life and its solutions in Ramayana. Now, of the human institutions, family is the basis of fundamental unity in society. And family positively plays a significant and decisive role in building a healthy culture and developed nations. Present scenarios of family values is disintegrating continuously. Ramayana, the national epic of India, commands a vivid, realistic, and ideal picture of the modern value or modern family. The epic exhibits a comprehensive portrayal of ideal, affectionate, and amicable relationship among family members. The essence of selfless sacrifice, no question of enmity, cordial atmosphere are the real ingredients of a prosperous family life. Now, the last part, implications of the study. Valmiki Ramayana stands out as a supreme and continuing to do so even now, generation after generation. The study focuses that the epic Ramayana has real-life implication culminating universal religion and harmony. The present paper has a modest attempt to depict phases of human life and ultimately leads to the highest principles of spiritual life through ideals of Ramayana. The epic has given ideal man, ideal woman, ideal brother, ideal friends, ideal servants, and moreover the ideal state to inspire the entire humanity. Ramayana's scriptures has glorified human life and truly be regarded as the epicenter of human enrichment. In conclusion, we can conclude that these epics or this type of things enrich the human life, and we have to follow these principles on which it is based so that we can make our life easier and smoother, because these things are very much lacking in nowadays, and that's why we see all the crimes and the other things are happening not only in India but also around the world. So they have a relevance in nowadays also, and they will have relevance in the present times to come. Thank you, ma'am. That's all my presentation.
Really very nice. Thank you, sir. It was really a very captivating presentation. We learned a lot. Like, we just are able to relate the ideal society. We are again assuming the ideal society, but what we have today is totally different what we have seen in the Ramayana and Mahabharata. It's really a very wonderful presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
I'm sure that after these stimulating presentations, you would like to ask questions and give suggestions. Now the floor is open for question and answer sessions. So no questions from the audience?
I have a question, please, for Arjit sir. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
a question actually; it's just an observation.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Actually, you were talking about some ideal. I mean, you very nicely explained the ideal man, ideal woman, ideal values, and
Yes, ma'am.
ultimately how it can actually, lead to a kind of universal value system, which can ultimately help the society to, uplift itself on a better position. The thing is, I mean, I have little reservation about this entire idea about having something ideal as one ideal, because in a postmodern world we are not talking about one ideal, we are talking about in Mahabharata also I've seen that the ethics is not up, but one ethics is talking about. The ethics are situational, the ethics are contextual, and it changes.
Yes, I agree with you.
Sometimes it's contradictory also.
Okay.
Right. So basically, I think I'm not an expert in Ramayana, but yeah, in Mahabharata, what I've seen that when we are talking about ethics, it is contextual, it is situational, it is contradictory, and it is not talking about a universal kind of a ethics which can be followed to the end. I mean, which can be offered to the entire world. So basically, my point is perhaps offering an idea of ideal maybe a little problematic and maybe a little unacceptable to the world. Something that is ideal as one ideal.
Yes, ma'am. It can be. It can depend upon situation, as you correctly pointed out. But when my point was that ideal man, ideal womanhood. That I was talking from the point of Raman, or I was talking from the point of Sita. So Ram left his throne, left his kingdom, and went to Banavas for 14 years. So from this point of time or point of angle, I was talking about that ideal man. So he left everybody, he left the ideal wealth of the country, wealth of the people also, and went into the forest. So from this angle, while I was trying to explain this point, yes, you are also correct, ma'am, from your point of view, that it is situational, and also it can be also negative. In some cases, it can be negative, and in today's world also, we cannot depict all this type of things, or we cannot correlate all this type of things nowadays also. Yes, ma'am, I agree with your point, ma'am.
Also, as you know, Sita's character has been rewritten in number of ways. Like Draupadi's character has been rewritten in number of ways. So, I mean, that's my point. That the ideal one and the real one dealing with reality. Perhaps somewhere it has two different ways of interpreting. I mean, obviously, your point was in that context, it's correct, and also there are a number of other contexts as well.
Yes, ma'am. I do definitely agree with you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
So there is one question from Deepa George. What is your opinion about the retelling of epics in depicting real life situations and ideals?
Ma'am, can you come around the question, please, once more time?
Sure, sir. What is your opinion about the retelling of epics in depicting real life situations and ideals?
Okay. Now, these epics are also a storehouse of our knowledge, also, as well as it showcases our culture, as also it shows the way by which we can proceed further. So we cannot omit these epics nowadays also, because these epics taught us a lot of things. So when we are reading this Ramayana or Mahabharata or any other epics, Iliad or Odyssey, these are a storehouse of not only a knowledge, but also a history, a culture, which our country depicted or depicts, and it showcases the man that we have to go into that area, or we have to move into that area, leaving aside the cruelness, leaving aside the cruelty, or leaving aside the destructions which we are doing right now. So in the current situation, the relevance of these type of things are very, very important from the human point of view. But sadly, we do not follow all these things, or we do not try to read all these things, and we do not read the culture also, we do not know the culture also correctly, and that is a very strange thing. And that is why, maybe I'm not sure also, there are various types of things which are happening in the society, and this does not reflect the true culture of India also. But if we try to follow the epics, or if we try to follow those books, the Muni Rishis, what the Muni Rishis have told us. So they have a something base, definitely a something base on which the present mankind can go a longer way.
My question is from M. Ashwarya. Can you throw some light on the pre-Abrahamic culture that you have mentioned? That even Australia had a pre-Abrahamic culture before the colonizers made their land their home.
Okay, the pre-Abrahamic culture that we are saying about, of course, there is no data about it, but what the interest toward the pre-Abrahamic culture came when, as I told, certain these theosophists and certain new pagans settled there. It was mostly about these earth-based religions, like this weather, like change of season. Season is there, they will celebrate. Like suppose there is rain, they will celebrate it. Then there is this, as I mentioned, there is this flowering season. Then the cloud season. These were the rituals that are, and mostly it is about this. Invoking the spirit of the land for a good harvest, and little bit of animism and other things like Wicca, etc., are mixed over there in it.
Okay, thank you. Now, any more questions from the audience? Yes, Veena ma'am. Yes, Veena Chandra. Ma'am, you have to unmute your mic.
Please. Yeah. Hello. I just came across, actually, unfortunately, I joined very late, but I got this question about something called as pre-Abrahamic cultures. I think like Professor who actually answered it, I would like to just go through your schedule. So I think it is.
First caller, M. Ashwarya.
Okay. So yeah. So just a second. So Abashwarya, yes, right?
Yes.
Okay. So it's in the technical section. Okay. So but if you can I say, yeah, I'm Ashwarya ji. So if you see because what you say, Claude Lévi-Strauss in when he talks about his book Myths and Traditions, he in detail he is discussing about different we may call them pre-Abrahamic because they are the pagan cultures he's talking about, which are not related to the biblical and the pre-biblical texts. So how will you decode that part? If you say that these are settler cultures or they have just migrated and they're just imbibing things from the nature, but we have not only textual, we have oral traditions, we have cultural traditions to substantiate the debate that the whole idea of pre-Abrahamic or the so-called pagan cultures were not only predated to the times of the biblical or the pre-biblical text, but it also has its own connotation, which is evident in almost every indigenous cultures of the world. And there is a correlation in these textual and the oral traditions as well. So how will you explain that part?
Ma'am, actually means get the question.
I beg your pardon?
Get the question.
Okay, am I not audible enough?
Quite audible.
Am I audible enough to you?
Yes, audible.
Okay, so my question is, when you there is, I'm really sorry because I'm just entering into the discussion because I could not hear your presentation. But your presentation was on
Neo-pagan and reconstructionist spirituality and religion in Australia.
Okay, so exactly that's so when you're talking about neo-paganism, so how will you connect it with the whole connotation of the myths and realities which pre-existed in the indigenous cultures throughout the world? And because if you have, like, I definitely suppose you must have referred to Claude Lévi-Strauss for that matter, because when he's talking about myths and the cultural connections, there is a linear kind of a connection in all the indigenous cultures all over the world. So there is a global connections, and this global connection actually works in a network. So how you, when you say neo-paganism, how you connect it with the pre-Abrahamic, or so-called as the classical pagan culture?
Actually, ma'am. Oh, ma'am. Now I get. Actually, you are asking actually the term. So, ma'am, actually, the thing is, the term new pagan, it doesn't. It means just in some way modernize whatever was left out from the ancient culture after it was damaged.
Okay, so you mean to say that neo-paganism is more about the
It is a ma'am. It is actually a revival movement after
no,
after
of
the
course it is a
Abrahamic.
it's a revivalist reactionary movement. So how do you connect it with the classical connotation or the classical framework? Is it just a revivalism, or do you want to say that it is more about the what do you call it is more about the reactionary movement, which has less of the contents of the philosophy of pre-Abrahamic, or so-called as classical paganism? What do you?
Ma'am, actually, it has nothing to do with the classical. They're just saying the rudimentaries, like for example, the druids, etc., etc. These all elements are there. It means it is far away from the classical, and the classical era it was completely lost after the Abrahamic death throes. So whatever was left out from it, it deals with. Means from there, they are just only reviving it. And
So, okay. I'm able to. So, do you feel this is more into Australian Aborigines and the New Zealand cultures? It's more with them, or it is? Have you tried a comparative analysis with the other indigenous cultures as well about this dynamics?
it is gradually becoming a global movement. It began first it first began among the British, as I mentioned in the paper, the Theosophian Society. It was there. One of the famous excuse me. One of the famous name is Annie Besant, whom we know
Yeah,
as
that we know.
Annie
Theosophical
Besant.
Society we definitely know, but a Theosophical Society and its base has its like far more rooted experiences in India. In Indian context, we can still have a different situational analysis, of course, with even the very famous scholar from who's talking about neocolonialism in India. He's also discussing about that part. But my question is, how you when you see it in the terms of Australian Aborigines and New Zealand, these cultures, they really don't have a textual reference to look back at. On the contextual level, Oriental cultures, for example, Asian cultures are far much better in terms of when they relate it with the classical cultures. So how you distinct? I really I wish I could have entered your paper. I could have entered.
Okay, ma'am, I'm telling you how it is being done actually. Ma'am, the first thing is when the colonization happened, certain new pagans reached there. New pagan movement started among the British community only. One of their forefather, no, one of their founders is Aleister Crowley, and another
In
is
Australia. Okay, you're talking about in Australia.
Ma'am, I'm telling you how it begins. It is
In Australia, right?
no, ma'am, not Australia. Actually, they are Britishers. From them, some people learned and they came to Australia, and that is how new paganism came into Australia, ma'am. So first is Aleister Crowley, another is Gerald Gardiner. They discovered what they did is the ancient Celtic culture, which was completely ignored in the Christianized England. They came across certain covens, then they learned about them. Then they formed their own sort of covens. Then what happened? Due to colonization, some Britishers went to Australia. They formed their own covens, and after that, it spread over there. The movement of new paganism.
Yeah, but this is the narrative from the imperial side. What is the narrative which is coming from the indigenous side? I hope you might have read the works of Heather Goodall, because indigenous perspective and narratives have, they speak a very different version. Anyway, it was really nice to get your opinion and your
One
content.
famous
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to extend my question. Thanks a lot.
actually one famous neo-pagan I'm telling you, it's Norman Lindsay. He was trying to create this pagan spirit in Australia by his pagan art. It was full of pagan eroticism, and because of at that time it was there was orthodoxy in Australia. They destroyed his art. It is about Norman Lindsay. The other one is Mr. Simon Goodman, who is known as the famous Alexandrian neo pagan. He grew up in Australia and went to England. There he met Alex and Maxine Standards and returned to Australia with an Alexandrian book of shadows and supplementary material, and with the purpose of spreading Alexandrian craft in Australia. In the mid 70s, he left his first coven and started another coven in Perth, and that is how he moved to Canada. And this is how actually the movement began.
Okay,
Yeah,
definitely.
in the neo-pagan movement, the basis is on the main focus is on nature worship. Means, as you know, there is so much of this environmental crisis, etc. The main focus is nature worship and a little bit of care of animals, also environment, etc. All things are there in neo-pagan movement.
Sure. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Aishwarya. Thank you. So the session is winding down. I take an opportunity to thank all the presenters for inspiring sessions that cover different aspects of Indigenous studies. I would also like to thank participants for the valuable discussions. I congratulate all the organizers for conducting a virtual international conference in a smooth way without any glitch. Once again, thank to all presenters, audience, and organizers.